On today's podcast,
owning your own business or becoming an entrepreneur is the best personal development program out there. And
the truth is, adding value will never go out of style. Hello, and thanks for joining us for another podcast today here with the superstar Mia Lamotte. And this is our second today, but certainly excited to do this. We've known each other for a while. Thanks for joining us today.
absolutely, thanks for having me.
And going back, I guess, several years at this point.
Yeah.
It goes by quick.
It does. Met you at a networking event.
Yep.
Well, actually a networking meeting that I actually joined.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's how we got things going. But so here to share with us basically appearances and how to make great appearances and how to not make faux pas. And I'm excited to hear about that. But ultimately, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and how you ended up at this point.
Sure. I am originally from Louisiana. I moved here 13 years ago with my significant other. He was working out in Fayetteville, and we lived in Benson, and now we live in McGee's Crossroads. So really love this area of the country. We have swamps in Louisiana and bayous, but here I am exposed to the mountains and to the beach, and so really just love having those options here. And it also gave us an opportunity to grow because there was no family here. We had to do our own networking. We had to meet new people, and I love doing that, and it's really helped both of us to grow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So growing up in Louisiana, tell us a little bit about that. What's the one thing you miss the most?
Probably the food.
I was going to say the food.
Yeah, the food. The food, the family. My family is still there. My brother and his kids and my aunts and uncles are all still there. But the food, I can duplicate some of it here, but there are some elements that are missing that you just can't get when you're not here. You can have it shipped in, but it's still not the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, sounds good. How long you been here in Raleigh now or in the area?
13 years now.
Okay. Awesome.
13 years.
And getting into personal style, how did you end up into that?
Oh, it's so funny you asked that question. I'm a beauty school dropout. So when I graduated from high school, I thought I was going to go into the beauty industry and did some work in there. And I was like, wow, this work is super, super hard. It was really hard work.
Standing up all day.
Doing roller sets. Like, it was really mundane. It wasn't the sexy stuff that we typically see. And so did that and then decided to go to school. I was working for a judge, and she would come home with all these files, and I was like, why are you working so hard to work so hard? Why did you work so hard to get to become a judge? And now you're working just as hard when you get home. And so I ended up in the judicial system doing work as a court manager, and then came here doing that same work. And then I attended a Tony Robbins seminar.
Okay.
Unleashed the power within, walked across the hot coals, all that, the whole bit. And, he actually gave me not permission per se, but at least a way to dream and have other options open to myself, like something that I really wanted to do. And that's when I started researching this thing called image consulting. And image consulting is more than styling. Styling could be helping people get dressed for photo shoots and things like that. But image consulting is more about the entire person. So it's their personal development. It's the way they behave. It's the way they communicate with other people. And now, because we have so many we have access to everything at our fingertips on the internet. It's all about the online presence too. So I coach people around their personal brand.
Which is interesting. And it's something that I've always thought highly about. Being prior military, obviously, having your boots shined, having your uniforms pressed, clean shaved, tight haircut, I believe that's one of the reasons why I got promoted so quickly is because I always looked the part. And then that's basically half the battle. especially when you're talking about the business world in 2019, where so much is on the internet. You better make a good impression, like a book. If you don't have the right book with a catchy title and it doesn't look good, the cover's got to look good, or dating for that matter. The cover's got to look good. If you want someone to read your book, the cover's got to look good. It's just a fact.
It is. And so many people, I've been noticing that there's a lot of body acceptance. So people really want to be judged by who they are and not by what they look like. Mm-hmm. And what I'm finding is that people are using that as an excuse to not care about their appearance. And what it's actually doing, it's off-putting. And there's a disconnect between who people say they are and how they show up in the world. Mm-hmm. And, we judge people within seconds of meeting them. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of those primal instincts that we have from, when we're in the caveman days. The fight or flight. Do I need to do it? Is this person dangerous to me or not? Right. Yeah. So it's really important for us to care about what we look like. And I'm all about breaking rules, mm-hmm. but know them first before you decide to break them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
You can make that conscious choice if you want to, but at least you're making an educated decision. So you land in Raleigh, you're doing your job, and you end up going to see Anthony Robbins,
yep.
who essentially gave you, I like how you said that he gave you permission.
Yeah.
But maybe he just opened your mind up a little bit that, hey, maybe I can do something else.
Right.
And get you kind of believing in yourself and doing some soul searching.
Absolutely. I had, it wasn't a miserable life, but it didn't light me up. Mm-hmm. And so last year I decided, I'm going for it. I had been doing... I've been working for the government for over 22 years before I decided to take this leap. And everybody was like, what are you doing? Are you losing your mind? Are you not going to wait to get your retirement? And all of these questions. I was just like, that's another 8 years. Do you know what I can do in 8 years?
Right.
And the idea of being able to set my own salary mm-hmm. and decide what kind of money I wanted to make and how I was going to travel and be in the world was very appealing to me.
I can totally relate to that. And it's, it's not without pitfalls. It's not without trials and stress and all that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you what, the stress I deal with now in terms of, having payroll and having personnel decisions and, trying to be a better manager, trying to communicate with different employees differently to get the best out of everybody. I'll take all the stresses of my life, but you talk about being lit up. Come Monday morning, everybody's dreary and back to work on Monday. I'll wake up a lot of times 4:30 in the morning. I'm literally wired.
Yeah.
First thing in the morning, because of the obstacles, because of the challenges, things I want to accomplish this week, but knowing there's going to be a bunch of other crap that comes and piles in on you that you're not expecting, customers calling or issues coming up. But you know what? I'll take that stress all day long to be able to set my calendar and do all that kind of stuff and ultimately have those goals and be able to have the energy to go out and try to do something great.
Yeah.
So good for you, and it's an adjustment.
It's a huge adjustment.
Yeah.
So I definitely, I made sure I had a coach mm-hmm. Throughout the transition. I'm still working with her, but one of the things that she says is that, owning your own business or becoming an entrepreneur is the best personal development program out there. And it's so true.
Right.
Because you're right. There are some obstacles that come up, and this is by no means easy. Mm-hmm. And, yes, it was pretty easy what I did before. Mm-hmm. I worked from 9 to 5. I had, 4 weeks of vacation. I had sick leave, and my check was in the bank the first of the month. Mm-hmm. But again, I wasn't lit up. I wasn't excited about life. And I was one of those people who were like, oh gosh, is this a vacation week, or is this, holidays were very welcome, snow days, all of that.
Right.
But now I'm working on the weekends,
right?
Because I want to,
and you're enjoying it primarily.
Absolutely.
And I think there's something else too. When I say I'm enjoying it or you're enjoying it, there's things you do that you don't enjoy, with probably just about anything.
Yes.
But that being said, it's a high level of enjoyment, and the fact that you're working towards something that's always exciting to me.
Yeah, and then the sky is the limit.
Right.
Like, where do I want to take this? How do I want to scale the business? Do I want to get into a different business? Like, all of these things, they work together. And like I said, it just opened up a whole new world to me.
So let me ask you this. One thing you've learned about being self-employed, if someone's thinking about leaving a career, jumping out and being self-employed, what's the number one thing you would put out there to them?
Get a coach.
Get a coach.
Work with somebody who has already been through the ranks and they've done this and they're successful. I think it's really important to have somebody that's going to be able to tell you like what to do, what not to do. I think that you and I had some conversations about scaling, and you recommended books and things like that before I even, took the leap. So you want to make sure you have a coach or you have a mentor, you have somebody that's going to be on your side to kind of guide you through the process, because it is not the same as having a job.
Right. It's totally not different. There's a totally different mindset.
Yeah. And
I can see businesses. I've seen businesses that I remember this one particular case. I won't go into it for time's sakes, but I went there and it was like shut down at like 5:00, and it was how do you have a retail space and you're not open in the evenings for this particular type of store? And sure enough, they were out of business within a year. And this was in the Lake Norman area at the time, but it's totally different mindset. The one thing that I think that you're hitting on with a coach or someone like that, you can have a lot of people around you, your mastermind. There's a mastermind principle, just getting people around you that they've been where you're trying to go. If I'm going to drive to Chicago, it's probably a good idea to talk to someone who's driven to Chicago several times. They can give you some feedback. What's probably been the most painful thing in the transition?
So, there have been a couple painful things. I would say the belief in myself, like having that every day I'd have to build that muscle. Like, oh, can you go and get 2 clients today? Can you do this today? Can you go and create a sales page that's going to be amazing? And all of these things that I didn't even have an awareness of. Like it was a huge learning curve, even though I did have the coach and I was doing all this the right stuff. Right. There was still this huge learning curve just about what I could and could not do. So a lot of this stuff, I had to start outsourcing, but then you have to make a certain amount of money to be able to do that. Sure. So that was probably the most painful part for me, was having to do the sales page with not even having a clue what a freaking sales page was. My coach would talk about a squeeze page or marketing, like you and I were talking about before. Marketing is a huge deal for all businesses. And we as owners have to know how to do that and run the company. So we're the talent, we're the worker, we're the marketer, we're everything for the business when you're doing this, as a solopreneur.
It can definitely be overwhelming initially.
Yes.
And when I first started iWatch Security, for example, it's you work your tail off for 30, 60, 90 days, and a lot of what you earned went right back into the company.
Absolutely.
Paying for the website, paying for, yard signs and stickers and logos and contracts to be printed out, contracts to be developed, paying your attorney. And it's just every time you turn around, you're spending money that you a lot of times don't anticipate you're going to have to spend.
Right.
So you work your tail off, but especially early on, you work your tail off for free a lot.
Yeah, I'm not getting a paycheck. I'm giving my paycheck to my coach, to my web developer, to the graphic designer. And, the other thing about that is if your partner is not on board with you, like it was a huge learning curve for both Sanford and I. Sure. Because he's like, wait a minute, I thought we were doing this for this reason. And, it's a different kind of lifestyle, but I would not trade it for a minute.
And so your mindset's ready for it and taking on that challenge. But when you have a partner, hopefully they're on the same page. Right. Because that friction can be a real bad thing in a relationship, of course.
Absolutely.
Those are some of the things I was kind of curious about. last thing before we jump into your 5 things, in terms of networking, what is something that you've learned over the years?
It's a must.
It's a must.
You have to network. And the thing about networking, like I used to not like doing it. Mm-hmm. It was not my favorite thing to do. But when I realized that if I just show up as myself, mm-hmm. that people are going to get me. And if they don't, it's not my problem. Mm-hmm. And everybody is not a potential client.
Sure. Yeah.
And the other thing is that to give value. And that was something that I learned by, meeting with you. It's, give people value first. How can you help them instead of, okay, well, who do you know that can help me?
Right.
Or who do you know that would be an ideal client? Or let me sign you up so you can get my product. Mm-hmm. It's really about giving value and creating a relationship with other people. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've learned about networking. And you can do that online. You don't have to just do it in person. And today, it has to be like a mix of both.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's so true. And I agree with you 100%. It's I heard this a long time ago. It's there's the old saying, it's all about who you know, right? But it's not. It's really all about who knows you. And you can know someone but not know them. Mm-hmm. When you get to know, like, and trust and actually build that rapport, and like when I text you out of the blue or vice versa, and it's like, hey, I'm genuinely excited. Like, hey, stranger, how you been? Exactly. And so just like seeing you today, it's been so long since we've seen each other, but networking is it's been crucial for me, for sure, for building the business, and I know it has for you. So other than that, without any further ado, we'll get these people what they're tuned in here for. So basically 5 things that you need to be thinking about in terms of appearance, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first thing, and you're going to die laughing at this one, is like people wear too much black.
Okay.
And I have on black today, but
I'm wearing black.
And you're wearing black today, but we can wear black. Everybody can't wear black.
Okay.
And I think it's really important to know that. So if you have like super, super fair skin, mm-hmm. sometimes it'll make you look older, or it'll make you look sicker. So you want to make sure that you know what colors look good on you, and don't just wear black by default. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people who do that. Yes, it covers up dirt. It's good for utilitarian purposes. Mm-hmm. So when you're in the kitchen, yes. If you're a chef, yes. But as a person who can choose their clothes, like, choose better. Like, black is not the only color in the on the spectrum.
Well, ultimately, I think people need to realize that they have choices. You don't always have to wear black. And the one thing that I'm kind of curious to hear back on this is that, a lot of people think black is slimming, but you've got some content about that.
Yeah, I do. So if you wear black and it's not a color for you, it can sometimes actually make you look heavier because it will weigh you down. If black is too dark for your personal coloring, imagine someone who has really light hair, really light eyes, and there's this blob of black at the bottom, and that's all you see, because mm-hmm. You're going to be drawn to that first. But if they had on something that was light in color and texture like they are, mm-hmm. then you would see them instead of focusing on this big blob of black. So it's really important to kind of take a look at yourself and like really evaluate how you're showing up, mm-hmm. because I think a lot of us just get dressed because it's what we've always done.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the one thing is, and again, it comes back to you and I were talking pretty extensively about coaching in general and things that we're learning and things, but ultimately, a dietitian can see things in us that we can't. A doctor can see things in us that we can't. An image consultant can see things in people that, hey, you are not at your best right now. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's real interesting feedback there. So we're on topic number 2, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Clothes don't fit people properly. I think that we have this imaginary number that we're like, yep, this is my number. And the clothes really don't work for us. So the biggest mistake I see is guys with pants that are way too big for them.
Too baggy.
So, yeah, so the crotch is hanging to the knee. Or even, I've even seen people with suits on that have their crotch all the way down to the knee, and then the leg, the hem at the bottom, is like a big puddle. And so as soon as I look at them,
Right.
I'm looking, and it's because I know what to look for.
Sure.
But I'm looking right at the crotch, which is a problem, and then I'm looking right at the foot,
Right.
where there's like these puddles of pants.
So if Mia's staring at your crotch,
It might not be for the right reasons.
just know that she's evaluating your wardrobe. But to your point, I think, of course you see it. Just
Yeah.
like I'll watch a movie and see a security sticker on a door at a convenience store in a movie,
Yes.
or Law and Order or something.
Yes.
So our brains point those things out. But I think a lot of people see it, and subconsciously they evaluate that person, that if they don't look good, they must not be good at what they do.
So the psychology of fit says that if a person wears clothes that are too tight, they might be a miser, so they don't want to go and get new clothes that are going to fit them. And if your clothes are too baggy, somebody might think that you're really sloppy and you don't pay attention to detail. So those are things that we just make up.
Just the psychology.
It's the psychology behind it,
Right.
and we make that up looking at somebody. So you want to make sure that you're sending the right message when you do get dressed.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's huge.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's one of those things, like anything. The more you learn, the more you realize, like, man, I got to throw out some stuff. I got to give some stuff away for sure.
Yeah, I was talking to someone who's really high level, and we were talking about appearance and these kinds of things, and she wants to make an impact with her appearance because of what she's trying to achieve.
Sure.
And she's like, I cannot believe that we're actually talking about this. So a lot of people think it's really esoteric, but it's essential. Mm-hmm. It really is an essential thing to have done.
Well, the other thing too is if you're a professional that's out there interviewing, I mean, your appearance is half the battle. It's amazing to me. People will spend so much time and energy and money on a resume, which is good. You want it to look good. But again, that principle, you want it to look good. You want to emphasize your strengths and that sort of thing. But then they don't put a bunch of time into their appearance.
And that's going to help them over a lifetime.
Right.
Investing in something like this, they get to learn what works for them,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps them for a lifetime. It's very different from learning how to do a resume, because your resume styles change all the time. But knowing what works for your body, knowing what colors that you should be wearing, knowing how to communicate a message that you want to put across, that's priceless. It really is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Number 3, right?
Number 3 is they don't have really good grooming habits.
Okay.
I mean, the nails are too long. They don't get a pedicure on a regular basis. They're not washing the hair on a regular basis. I am all for people having their most natural looks. I don't believe that we should have, that you should look like one race when you're not that race. But I also believe that we need to be at least cleaning ourselves up. I'm all for the beard gang.
Sure.
I mean, you have a beard going on.
I'm a little more burly than normal right now, but
Yeah.
but again, it's
groom it.
Right.
Like you can't just grow the beard out and just let it go.
right.
You have to groom it. I mean, there are people out there that do it. I used to work with some guys.
No question, yeah. Just a big ball of stuff, and and I guess there's places you can. I mean, if you're in a band, you can get away with that.
I think that when you're a superstar, that you can absolutely do whatever
Sure.
you want to do. And I'm not saying that you should fit into anybody's boxes. Like I said, well, that'll be my next one.
Right.
But
Like I already know where your opinion is, like on the dreadlocks thing.
yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, we talked about that, or I saw something somewhere about something about dreadlocks and not being able to, I guess, discriminate against someone with dreadlocks. But
Yeah.
but again, to your point, there's a way to do it and do it right. You don't have a rabbit, hanging out in there, or you're neat and clean and it looks good.
Right, because I believe that everybody their culture gets to be honored. And for me, that's super important. So I want to make sure that, the audience knows that too. Like, you get to honor who you are. And if that's who you are at your core, then maybe you don't need to be working for a place that doesn't honor that. So that's number one. And then number two, if you do want to work at a place like that, then you do have to abide by the rules, or be the kind of person who will say, hey, let's have a conversation about it so we can make some changes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's some professions that, I'll be honest, just being in sales, like for a long time, it was kind of taboo to even have facial hair in sales, because it kind of created this impression like you're not trustworthy or something. You're trying to hide something. So I think there are certain professions that, you're, for example, the earring, the ring with the hoop and things like that. I mean, I just got to tell you, I think you're going to have a tough time in professional sales. So there are appearance things that, I know the way you are and the way you think, like, do you?
Yeah. And I think that people don't realize that it's adding an extra layer. And it's a barrier for people to get to know them. It's a protection layer. It's, especially, it's one of those things that says, you know what, don't talk to me. And people don't realize that they're doing that. And it makes people standoffish, and then they want to wonder why nobody wants to talk to them.
And so number 4?
They haven't taken the time to learn the rules, so they'll know which ones they want to break. I am not here to advocate people fitting in a box ever, because I don't fit in a box. And I think that it's important for people to know what the rules are so they can say, you know what, I don't really care about that, and do it in a conscious way instead of in a way where you are just clueless. It's like picking up the wrong fork, when you go out to dinner, picking up the wrong fork because you really just don't care.
Right.
Or picking up the wrong fork because you don't know. There's a difference.
There is.
It's a difference.
And so ultimately, well, I guess I'd wrap up with that, but ultimately it's a worthwhile investment for sure.
Absolutely.
And I can tell you, just being on this side of the desk and hiring, there's a lot of people that literally when they walk in and I'm actually someone who's thoughtful about trying not to prejudge and trying not to make that snap decision. But I'll tell you what, there's people that have walked in here and they're 50% done before they start talking. And, ultimately it's just their, communication's 80% nonverbal, roughly, from what I understand. And I'll tell you, it's just more often than not, that first perception was validated through the conversation. So it kind of it kind of just validates, to your point, that your appearance communicates so much.
It does. And it's really important in your industry because these people are going to houses and to offices where people are their most vulnerable. And you don't want to have somebody who doesn't even look trustworthy to represent you or your company.
And our brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're there representing our company, and you are the face of the company.
Yep.
So, you can get mad for an employer, discriminating or judging you or however you want to phrase that. But, my first and foremost job is to make sure that when someone's out there representing the company, I got lots of kids depending upon those paychecks clearing. And every person that we employ or represents the company is either negatively or positively impacting that. That's a decision we have to make. There is no gray area. I either think you're going to represent the company well or I don't.
Right.
So I think I just hijacked that conversation there. What were you saying?
No. But that's the total point. And you said something about the company brand, and I kind of want to touch on that because I am a personal brand strategist. So I help people with their personal brand. But when you work for a company, your brand has to be in congruency with the brand that you're working for.
That's a great point.
And people don't really get that when they say, "Oh, I want to go and work for." Let's just say they want to go into work at Edward Jones, but they don't look the part.
Right.
Might not be a good fit for you.
Right.
You might want to start your own company.
And do your own thing and create your own brand.
Absolutely.
It's the harder road.
It is the harder road.
But it might be worth it.
It might be. How strong are you on your brand? Like how committed are you to being on brand for you as opposed to being on brand for Edward Jones?
Sure.
as an example.
And again, I'll just say something that I've seen a little bit more often here dealing with realtors or professionals in this industry that maybe have a nose ring. Mm-hmm. It doesn't bother me at all. But it might bother a lot of people, and to your point, is that nose ring, is that making that personal statement that important to you to where you're willing to lose clients or potential clients?
Right. Or are your clients going to be more of the artsy type? Mm-hmm. And are they going to be able to pay you, or are they buying the houses that you'll be able to sustain an income? Mm-hmm. And that's the question you have to ask yourself.
Sure.
Are you going to be able to use this every day, wear this earring, and have the impact that you want to have, or the nose ring?
Absolutely. And again, you or I, it doesn't matter to us.
Yeah.
I could deal with someone like that, but a lot of people may not. And here's the other thing. I don't think it makes those other people, think it makes anybody a bad person in this scenario. It's just you're either jiving with somebody or you're not. So, is it worth it? I remember when I first grew a goatee in the late 90s, that was like I was swimming upstream doing that. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of goofy thinking about it now, but, just a neatly trimmed goatee. But back then I was willing to possibly risk losing a sale over it, or I thought I was good enough to overcome that objection, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that we have to we get to realize that when we make those choices, we're also making the choice to not let people get to know us based on our appearance too. So we can make a choice to have these things that will maybe hold us back. Mm-hmm. And you can say all you want that people shouldn't be judging me by that, but we do.
Yeah.
And you have the potential of not letting somebody know who you are because you chose to do something like that.
Right. But to your point, get educated. Know what you're up against.
Yeah.
And just some things that you may want to check out Mia online on Facebook or Instagram and a variety of different things, because there's a lot of things that we're not touching on today. For example,
absolutely.
Colors that you should be wearing if you're trying to sell.
Yep.
If you're in sales, there's certain colors that are great. There's certain colors that are bad. I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to research her content. But just a lot of great follow-up content.
Sure.
To follow up on.
Yeah.
Anything you want to close with before we wrap up?
I'll give you the fifth one.
Oh, is it the fifth?
Okay, I haven't given you that one yet. Yeah. So the fifth one is that people don't get dressed with an intention. So a lot of folks will just throw on clothes because it's the clothes that fit. It's the ones that are clean. It's the ones they don't have to iron. Mm-hmm. But they don't have an intention when they get dressed, and it's apparent when they show up. They just throw on something.
Slapped a bunch of stuff together.
Yeah.
So you see someone like that. What's your vibe that these people don't? They're not thoughtful.
Right. When I would see somebody like that, for instance, the grocery store. Mm-hmm. That's a really good place where you see people who kind of just throw on whatever, especially the one near campus. And to me, it just says I don't think enough of myself to get dressed to come in here, or I don't think enough of you to get dressed to come in here. So we always show what we think about ourselves on an outward appearance, and it's apparent if somebody cares about themselves based on the way they show up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, you only get the one chance to make a first impression.
That's right.
And it's always been important to me. I was ironing my pants. I don't know why. And, elementary school, I just didn't like wrinkles in my pants. So that's where I started ironing, to be honest. But it's just always been interesting to me that some people just don't get it. And that's okay if you don't get it. Like, I don't get a lot of administrative type stuff. That's why I outsource it, and I bring in a professional to either deal with it or help me get better.
Absolutely.
And so that's why you have a company, and you're in business to help out the people that just don't necessarily have a great grasp of that area.
Right.
But awesome. Sorry I tried to cut you off early there.
No worries. And my Instagram handle is Mia Lamotte Image. So it's MIA LAMOTTE.
There you go.
Image, or at Mia Lamotte Image.
Okay, there we go. Make sure you give Mia a follow and stay on top of her stuff there.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for coming in and helping
Absolutely.
us, helping everybody get on top of their appearance game.
Of course.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, and thanks for joining us at another 5 Things podcast, and stay tuned for more great information. Hello, this is Brian Smith, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable content.